Hello everybody, and welcome back to Cam Critiques. 2020 is finally over, and it sure had a lot of games. Luckily for you, I played and deeply analyzed each and every one of them. Now I can offer a subjective list of the 10 best games that were released last year. Let's get started. Number 10. Paper Mario: The Origami King. I won't say too much about this game as I've already put up a comprehensive review on this very channel, which I'd recommend checking out if you haven't yet. What I will say though, is that I never expected a modern Paper Mario would breach my top 10 for any year. A lot of the issues that have plagued this series, especially since Sticker Star, are still here. But I found this game is more than made up for its boring characters and lackluster combat, with its gorgeous visuals, great soundtrack, fun exploration, and genuinely interesting story. I wish it had more unique characters, and I really wish the combat was better, but I can't say I wasn't having a lot of fun most of the time I was playing this game. Number 9. Puyo Tetris 2. I loved the original Puyo Tetris. The core puzzle gameplay is of course the best part, but the fun side modes, vibrant aesthetic, and ridiculously charming story make it all the better. The only real problem with this sequel is how similar it is to the first. Most of the modes between the two are identical, and the sole big new mode, Skill Battle, isn't particularly enjoyable in my opinion. Giving players abilities to charge and unleash mid-match is a great idea, but rounds end far too quickly for anyone to properly strategize. Most of my rounds see no abilities to use whatsoever, aside from maybe healing. At least the new story mode is great, but it's not particularly long, and it shows no real evolution coming from the first game. It also doesn't help that I've yet to find a single online match. The PS5 leaderboards showed less than 100 people ever ranked for every online mode last time I checked. Though I guess I shouldn't be too surprised that this game isn't a big hit with the current PS5 user base. Overall, this is still a fantastic puzzler, just like the original Puyo Tetris. I'd recommend it to any puzzle fan. I just wish it did a little more to change things up. Number 8. Doom Eternal. The FPS genre isn't my favorite, but the 2016 Doom reboot stands out in my mind as something pretty special. Few things are as satisfying as decimating a demon with a chainsaw, blasting behemoths into pieces with the BFG, or tearing a weakened monster's heart out with your bare hands. So I was pretty excited for Doom Eternal. And luckily it lived up to the hype. It carries over a lot of what's great about the original, making some interesting new changes to freshen things up. The difficulty is cranked up a fair notch, making your success all the more satisfying. It's not too hard though. Even as somebody who rarely plays FPS games, I was able to tear through Ultra Nightmare with relative ease. You still feel more than powerful enough, which is very impressive considering this difficulty increase. I'd honestly say this game feels closer to Bayonetta or Devil May Cry than its contemporary FPS games like Call of Duty. It's built on fun, stylish combat that tests all of your abilities and makes you feel like a god once you've mastered them. I have to say though, the additional platforming added to Doom Eternal is a great idea, but it's not very well executed. It's pretty janky with strange hit detection for climbing walls and invisible barriers preventing you from doing anything too fancy, so it often feels like more of a hindrance than anything else. Regardless, the core of this game is as good and satisfying as ever. Number 7. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Wow, another sequel. I'm noticing a bit of a pattern here. Well, Ori and the Blind Forest is one of my favorite Metroidvania games of all time, so I was quite excited for this one. I couldn't wait for more beautiful art, great music, heart-wrenching story beats, and challenging platforming. And this game delivered that in spades. The overall presentation is incredible. The visuals and soundtrack are still absolutely gorgeous. The story is still told with little interruption of the gameplay, but big emotional impact, though not quite as big as the original. The shame stick just doesn't hit as hard the second time around. But the gameplay is much improved. The combat has far more depth and variety, but it's still easy to grasp. And the platforming still holds just the right level of difficulty and smoothness, but now with lots of extra gadgets to toy around with. I honestly have very little bad to say about it. It might even be better than the original. The only reason it isn't higher on my list is that to me it's honestly a bit forgettable. It lacks any one big thing to make it stand out, especially when the original already exists. Still though, it's an excellent game that's well worth your time if you're a platforming or Metroidvania fan. Number 6. Demon's Souls. The original Demon's Souls has got to be one of the most important games of the past 20 years, pioneering a new style of action RPG that would go on to be extremely popular. It was never as beloved as its successor, Dark Souls, but I always personally preferred it. It had a fantastically dark atmosphere that just totally drew you into the world. Very interesting level design, great lore told in a unique manner, and mostly great boss battles. And that all remains in this PS5 remake. But giving it a new level of visual polish, a stable frame rate, and lightning quick load times improves the experience a ton. It also doesn't hurt that this is the most graphically impressive game I've ever seen. It's utterly gorgeous. A bit of the mystique of the atmosphere is lost, with far less fogginess overall, but I think the trade-off and the graphical upgrade was well worth it. This game sadly still has a bit of the jank of the original, and I kind of wish they did more to improve low points like the Dragon God boss, but still, this title not only maintains the vast majority of the fantastic elements of the original, it also does a great job of showing what the PS5 can do. Number 5. Spelunky II. I very much have a love-hate relationship with Spelunky 2. This game is brutally difficult and can sometimes feel unfair. You'll die again, and again, and again. But each death genuinely does teach you something interesting about the game, and boy is there a lot to learn. The sense of progression here is simply amazing. You unlock no permanent upgrades or anything of the sort, aside from some shortcuts that you're somewhat disincentivized from using. You just learn more and as a result, get further. Each success feels incredibly satisfying, and there's so much to discover. So many secret levels, items, lore, bosses, etc. It's just so enticing. I haven't been able to put it down all year since it came out back in September, and the newly added online multiplayer has just gotten me that much more addicted. The sheer amount of things to discover, ways to die, interaction between objects to see, there's nothing quite like it, aside from Spelunky Classic and HD obviously. Dying to traps or enemies off screen or random lava explosions or whatnot really is unfair, and can be very frustrating. But it's well worth pushing through that frustration to discover what lies ahead. Number 4. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Final Fantasy VII is up there with Super Mario 64 as one of the most nostalgic games ever for me. As a young kid I never got too far, but I just loved playing it. And when I grew older and eventually played more, I was still amazed. The soundtrack, story, cast, world, it's all top-notch. Remaking such a classic is no easy feat. But thankfully, Square Enix mostly knocked it out of the park here. This game stands on its own as a separate entity that justifies its existence without making the original irrelevant. It has fantastic strategic action combat that maintains the essence of the original despite being radically different at its core. It's extremely satisfying. Getting to play as so many different characters is very enjoyable. The soundtrack here is also still amazing. The tone of each track is maintained, the intensity is greatly elevated due to real orchestration. What honestly really stands out to me is the story. The cutscenes are composed incredibly well and are constantly exciting and interesting. The characters are the same at their core but are given much more time to be developed, which really helps give them more depth. And the slight twists on the original plot that occur throughout are an absolute joy to behold. I do wish it had a bit less padding. Some caves and dungeons just felt totally unnecessary, and are all the more frustrating when the story is so enticing. I also wish the visuals were a bit more, I guess, consistent. It's weird, the character models are among the best looking from any video game ever, but then some doors look like they're from the PS1 original. Still though, this was one of the most enjoyable gaming experiences I had this year, and I really can't wait for part 2. Number 3. Hades. Hades really surprised me. I enjoy other games from Supergiant like Bastion and Transistor, and I enjoy many roguelikes and lights, so I thought it would be a fun time. But I truly wasn't prepared for just how good it would be. This game is practically perfect in structure. Combat is smooth, energetic, and very enjoyable, aided by fun and fast-paced movement. Bosses are very cleverly designed around your abilities. Character progression is super tangible and satisfying. Upgrades give you a ton of variety and are almost all viable. The art style is gorgeous, the soundtrack is super catchy. But, most shocking of all, the story and characters are great. I've never seen any roguelite like this even try to attempt to deliver a substantial story, much less one as fantastic as that of Hades. Every character is likable or hateable in just the right way. All the interactions are super entertaining. The core plot progresses in an interesting way. The sheer amount of unique dialogue is astounding. I was truly blown away by Hades. I wish it had a stronger true ending, I wish relationships progressed faster, I wish weapons were better balanced, and I wish the game was a bit harder. But still, Hades is something that's super unique and super enjoyable. I'd highly recommend it. Number 2. 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. When I first heard about this game, I was pretty confused. Why would Vanillaware, known for their great 2D action titles, suddenly focus all their efforts on a part visual novel, part strategy game? I didn't think they could do it. Nothing they made showed any particular strengths in storytelling, or strategy. But boy was I wrong. 70% of 13 Sentinels is, simply put, masterful. It tells one of the strongest mysteries I've ever had the pleasure of unfolding. Even though the order in which you see many of the story beats is completely up to you, it all felt very deliberate somehow. Each and every chunk answered some burning question I had in a fascinating way, while introducing 2 or 3 more right up until the end. The story is truly unhinged on a level I've never seen before. eclipsing even the likes of the non-Air games. It had almost entirely made sense. This 30-hour barrage of insanity somehow never loses you along the way. This game is simply black magic. I don't understand how it works, but it does. Note, however, that I said 70% of it was masterful. What about the other 30%? Well, it's alright. The strategy combat here is far from bad, but it's nothing special, and that really hurts when it prevents you from something as magical as most of the story mode of 13 Sentinels. If the combat was just cut from the game, this would be my game of the year. Sadly, it holds it back. The ending is also a little weak, leaving some lingering questions sadly unanswered. But still, overall, I love 13 Sentinels Aegis Room, and I don't see nearly enough people talking about it. I implore you, if you're at all interested, check this game out. You won't be disappointed. Number 1. Persona 5 Royal. I considered not putting this game on the list at all. It is, in essence, a simple re-release, not even on a new console. But I just couldn't help myself. The 2020 game I most enjoyed playing was, by far, Persona 5 Royal. I already loved the original. This game effectively improved it in every way, addressing most major issues I had with it, and adding on some incredible new content. The visuals are as stylish as ever. The already incredible soundtrack is bolstered by even more catchy tunes. The combat has some slight adjustments that make it even faster and flashier. The core story even has some slight changes to fix some of the shortcomings of the original. But what really stands out to me is the additional section tacked on to the end. After playing other Atlas re-releases, I've learned not to expect much out of such additions. Maybe a tacky dungeon and one extra confidant awkwardly slipped somewhere into the main story. Never would I have expected a 10+ hour expansion with its own story, especially not one with a story better than that of the base game. Persona 5 Royal takes an already amazing game, makes it even better, and then adds a whole new expansion to the end that's even better than that. Putting a re-release in the top slot of a list like this really does feel weird, but Persona 5 Royal is just that good. Well, that does it for the list. I wouldn't be surprised if it transformed a bit over time. Obviously this list wasn't truly objective and opinions can change. I've also yet to play a few games like Yakuza Like a Dragon, Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, and The Pathless that very well might have claimed a spot. But still, let me know if you agree or disagree in the comment section below, and please leave a like and or subscribe if you enjoyed the video. If you want to see additional updates about the channel, follow me on Twitter or Instagram, or join my Discord server, all linked in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and have a happy new year.